Management and Fire Safety in Southern Counties Division. With over 25 years in the construction industry working in design and information management, he is passionate in realizing the business benefits structured data and BIM can deliver through its implementation at scale across the housing sector. Good afternoon, Phil. Over to you.
Thank you for the introduction. Next slide, please. Oh, next slide, please. So this afternoon, I'm just going to talk about a research project I've been doing for the last couple of months. First, we'll talk about some standards and formats, why approved document B, a bit about information retrieval, machine learning, and then we'll have a quick demonstration on how the system is working in a draft form. Next slide, please. So here are a list of some of the standards that were used in this project. So the first one is SCOS, and that was used to create the key terms from Appendix A. The next one is a Dublin Core standard, which is an industry standard. This could be used as an export format from the repository. XML, which is another industry standard. I was given a file by British Standards, and I imported some of that data into this repository. BibTeX is another industry standard, and it's used for reference data, and I imported some citations. Now the last one, as far as the standards that were used on this particular project at this particular time, are scalable vector graphics. And I used this to create the tables and diagrams, and so that machines could read the text and the entities that were inside of some of these tables and diagrams. Below are some other specifications. Specification for discovery of construction knowledge, which uses Uniclass, and that's been published just this year, and BOT. So that uses a W3 standard, and it's an ontology for building information. Next slide, please. So this is a bit about why I thought approved document B would be a good place to start looking at how structured data could be used in guidance documents. The red squares represent some of the references that are linked to each other. For example, this is a search from diagram 15.1. Next slide, please. And that links to diagram 15.1, see paragraph 15.2, and so forth and so on. And it starts to bring up a lot of different diagrams and texts. In the middle, I forgot to mention, this is what you would get if you search the repository today. You would get a list of paragraphs in sequential order based on your search criteria. And we'll look about a little bit more about search criteria in a minute. We go to the next slide, please. Now on this one, it's another reference to the provision of firefighting lifts in diagram 15.2. It also says, and it relates back to see also paragraph 15.2. We go to the next slide, please. And diagram 15.1 cross-references to table C1 provision of fire door sets. And we'll go to the last slide in this series. And also, the diagram 15.1 cross-references to see BS 999 in accordance with section 6. So the reason that this is such a complicated set of images is because sometimes when you're searching through the approved documents, you have to look at a lot of different parts of it. So you've got text, you've got diagrams, and you've got tables. But also there's quite a bit of information that sits out of the approved documents. Next slide, please. So this slide represents how you could search through the system. So in the top left, you could browse by subject, and it shows the building regulations, and also it shows the different sections of the approved document. At the top right is a simple search box where you could put in a keyword, and below that is an advanced search. So you could search by title, creator, page range, and uncontrolled keywords. And we're going to talk quite a bit about those. And this is how the machines help us put together some of these pieces of the puzzle. We just go to the next slide, please. So we searched for means of escape. We've got a list of paragraphs, and also we've got a preview of one of the diagrams, diagram 2.1, means of escape from dwelling houses. One of the features of this repository is being able to export this data into another system. And this is a really great feature. So it's not a proprietary repository. It gives an opportunity to expand this data and to be used in other systems. Go to the next slide, please. Another complicated slide, but the reason I put this together is to show some of the data that could be searched. For example, you could search by the paragraph 17.1, or for example, page 110. Below book section under uncontrolled keywords are some of the keywords that an algorithm has thought this applies to these paragraphs. And some of them are quite relevant and some of them are not very helpful. For example, responsible person, building work extension, some safety information, probably quite helpful. Another helpful bit of data that you can extract from here is a URI, which is something that could be linked to another system. The main purpose of breaking up the approved document is to create information chunks. So below there in paragraph, right at the bottom on the left is paragraph 17.1a. Now, and below there is 17.1b. And those information chunks can be used to on other systems, but also you can really get some precision in your search. To the right is just a preview of what you would see on the system if you were looking for a diagram. So you get a preview and you get a JPEG and also an SVG. JPEG is not machine readable, but that's what the industry uses at this particular time. If we go to the next slide, please. So this slide demonstrates using two sets of images. So on the left is a standard table that you would get out of approved document B. And this one is table B4 minimum periods of fire resistance. On the right is what the machine will read. And what the machine can do with a vector image is it can draw the lines, and it also can extract the text. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. If we go to the next slide, please. So one of the challenges with the approved documents is how the amendments are issued. So in May of this year, there was an update to compartmentation, the use of sprinklers and flats. So this is just a very rough draft of potentially being able to compare the data before the amendment happened and after. And this is of clause 7.4 in approved document B1. And below shows that there's other versions. So you could look at historical versions of different paragraphs and be able to compare the data and say, this is the way it was a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and this is how it is now. What has changed in this context? Go to the next slide, please. So this is a very early iteration of using machine learning with key terms. On the left is some text that I copied from the NBS, and it's what is a health and safety file, and there's the link below. So you put that in a box in this search engine, you might call it. It will, in the middle, it will automate subject suggestions. And the goal is to point you to industry guidance. So in this particular instance, it's brought up L1539, Managing Health and Safety in Construction. And it says that is ranked at the very highest bit. We go to the next slide, please. Another way we can use machine learning is, so this is text about means of escape, and how do we point that to a vocabulary? So this means of escape and the definition are from Appendix A, key terms. If we go to the demonstration now, please. So this is a very quick overview of how you could use the system. So we start out, you can just browse by year, subject, or author. And as I showed in the slide before, you can go by the building regulations, or you could go by the section. This shows that there's different types of items in this. So for all the text, I use book section, and for all the tables and diagrams, I used an image, is because that's what the system is set up to do. So here's a search for means of escape, and initially it sorts it by paragraph. So for example, it starts at point 3, point 11, and then you can reorder it to relevance. And it will bring up diagram 2.1 to the top. And you can also have a preview of that. Now we'll go to a bit more of an advanced search, So we look at fire resistance, but we'll only look at fire resistance in section 2 of dwellings. So you're able to combine a keyword with a section. And as I mentioned before, these particular keywords were generated by artificial intelligence or machine learning. In this example, you can do fire resistance and lifts. So you can combine two phrases together. So it's helping to define and get more precision onto your search. So now we've only got 4 results. Here it demonstrates how you could potentially make a checklist. So you're checking your design, you're checking your construction documents, and you could add them to what they call a shelf. This is showing how you can move items up and down the shelf. And now it's a quick view of how you could export this data. In this instance, is BibTeX. So you can get volume, author, number, that's the clause numbers, what series, title, and so forth and so on. And we've used abstract for the main text. Now we'll talk a little bit more about AI. So another NBS search from Google. So what is the golden thread? I've copied that into this machine learning black box. Select an algorithm. So in this particular, it's a TF-IDF, and it's come up with construction plan, control plan. And here's the definition. So what it's done is it's said, okay, this text has these types of words in it. Now in future, I'm hoping that to have a bit more of an advanced algorithm. So another search on the same text, it's come up with the same list of subjects, but this time we're looking at gateway points and how that's linking that. And the key will be to be able to link this back to a repository. And if we just go back to the slides, thank you. My last slide is a list of references. So at the top, there is the building vocabulary, which has some of the key terms from the approved documents. Right below there is the repository. If you want to have a look and do some searches, you will need to sign up if you want to make a list, but everything else you don't need to. And the one below that is automated subject indexing. Okay. And we're okay with questions now?
Hello, Phil. I'm actually waiting for the questions to come through. I don't think we got any, actually.
Okay.
You must have answered everybody's question.
Well, it's a new concept, so.
Yeah, it's probably taking it all in, to be honest. And to be honest, you're spot on time as well. So not an issue. So give us a chance to catch up. All right, okay. Phil, I'm just going to say thank you to